Logically, what options do we really have? Are we doomed to continue repeating history? An audio blog by Jake Jackson, April 21st, 2023. There is a seemingly endless amount of disruptive white noise in our world and very little focus on what truly matters. I see it every single day of my life as an observer of society. People are trapped in their own lives of monotonous routine, completely oblivious to the big picture and the pieces of the puzzle which are being put into place to permanently alter their routines against their will in ways they can't even imagine right now. What happened in 2020 was just a test run for what has been planned for humanity. But most believe the official narrative and think everything has gone back to normal. You know, the new normal we were promised. That's the trap. It's always been the trap. Like a boa constrictor, the predator class currently controlling all of the major institutions of this world squeeze for a while and then relax, making their prey believe that the worst is over. The boom and bust economic cycle is just a small part of the game they play with their victims. However, the strangulation and complete death of their liberty and freedom has yet to be fully realized. It's a plan which has been in the works for generations and is thankfully way behind schedule. But as technology accelerates at an ever-increasing speed, the end game draws closer and closer at a quickening pace as well. The question is, can it be stopped and reversed? Will humanity ever be truly and completely free? I have been pondering these questions for over 16 years now. I've spent tens of thousands of hours researching not only the true nature of our human condition and how it got this way, but coming to the realization of the complete absurdity of the system, which most people just accept as normal. Along the way, I learned the language arts, which were purposely removed from the curriculum. I and everyone else was taught in the public school system. Thus, I finally learned how to think critically and communicate effectively, as opposed to what to believe, which authorities to blindly trust as the majority of the population does, and regurgitate these beliefs to others as truth. I learned about the profound power of natural law, and that man's law is yet another trap created to enslave the majority to the whim of a tiny minority. For the record, legal is not the same as lawful. Like everything else, it's a perversion of what we think it is. The entire world is out of balance, and most are either completely oblivious or simply don't care about the consequences of this imbalance. However, it is affecting each and every one of us in ways most don't have the discernment to understand. But as Samuel Adams wrote, there are always the irate, tireless minority who do understand and who want more than anything else to see this world restored to its natural order. The next question is, how do we get there? If we didn't believe it could be stopped, we wouldn't have sacrificed so much of our lives to show the world how much better things can be if we actually focused on fixing the problems instead of just talking about them or expecting others to fix them for us. If we didn't believe we could get there, it would be a complete exercise in futility in attempting to manifest this profound change in the human condition. But it is something which must be done, or the future will be one in which no one with a sane mind and desire for free will would want to live. So we persist and continue on with our mostly thankless and unappreciated work in hopes that we will win the race to the finish line before the predators have an opportunity to fully implement their prison grid and make escape nearly impossible ever again. So there is a real sense of urgency here. We must take action, and it must be now. Every day we put off looking for or working on solutions, or put off looking at what others have proposed as viable solutions, is another day we have given the enemy to advance. Is there anything more important than freedom and the future for your children? I wouldn't think so, but in this culture of shiny objects, celebrity, insidious materialism, and perpetual amusement, the ability for people to focus on what's truly important has seemingly been all but lost. And that as well was all part of the social engineering of the same predator class. We are ensnared in a web they have been spinning for multiple generations, and it is fully up to us to extricate ourselves from this trap. Everything they do is designed to complicate seemingly self-evident truth and confuse the mind of the masses. By removing critical thinking skills from the curriculum, they have created a population who only believe what they are told by their televisions, and anything contrary to the programming received from this device and by which their biases are confirmed by friends, family, and a community programmed in the exact same way is immediately rejected as crazy. They have created a system of automatons who will mindlessly do whatever it is they are told they must do. Their free will has essentially been stolen from them without their realization. Yet, these people think they have freedom and a mind of their own. They believe in the idea of their truth, when their truth is what their programmers want and need them to believe. When you get a supermajority, 67 to 90% of the population, to do as they're told without challenge, question, or even the slightest thought that something may not be right, you can direct the world in the way you want them to go. They are in essence the master shepherds, leading their flock to the slaughter, or at least into the gated pastures in which they can be completely monitored and controlled. The rest of us are unfortunately caught up in this false reality because we are so greatly outnumbered. People have literally lost their minds. Without the ability to think critically and question authority, do we have any free will at all? Can we create the lives we truly want in a system designed to put constraints on what we can do, and which is rigged against the majority? And for all those out there living your best life, will it be your best life when the system that only allowed you to achieve wealth, status, and independence is taken out from underneath you? Should it concern you to look at the big picture and understand that the economic system in which you created your wealth is a house of cards, very close to collapsing? This time perhaps it will be for the final time in our lives, before a new system in which attaining that sort of best life will be nearly impossible ever again. Do thoughts like this ever cross your mind? Or are you so focused on material wealth and selfish desires that you can't be bothered to look at the wider world around you? Sure, you may be good, but what about the rest of the world? We are all connected. A phrase beat to death in 2020 was, "We're all in this together." But most have no idea what this really is. Yes, we are all in this, and we all need to find a way out, because this is not what any of us want. Though this they told you was all a lie anyway. They are masters of misdirection, and like the world's best magicians and illusionists, they have made you believe so many blatant lies that it confounds those of us who can see. But it's all a trick. It's a mind fuck. None of it is real. They only make you believe it's real with their slick show and attractive assistance in the illusion. But the same goes for their authority and power over us. That too is an illusion, which can be dissolved with the right information, applied critical thinking skills, and the restoration of the mind to the way it's supposed to operate. All of what they do is to create fear and prey on our emotions. Everything is about manipulating your emotional states. And once you understand this, you can begin to look at everything with fresh eyes and a new perspective. Once you learn the language arts, you can apply this new skill to examine the grammar and logic behind their rhetoric, as well as your own personal beliefs. And like the rest of us who have broken free, see the truth about them, what they have done to us, and the inverted world they have created. Then you too will want to do something about stopping it in its tracks and dissolving the system as well. So now that we have cleared that up, what does logic tell us as to our options at this point in history? Well, once you understand that it's the system itself and all of the machinations of that system which keep us enslaved to an illusion of reality, logic should be screaming at us that we must do all we can to dissolve the system, and along with it, the delusion it is creating in the mind of the masses. I have identified the 6 most prominent options I have heard people talking about over the years as to what we can do about our situation. Number 1, maintain the status quo. This essentially equates to doing nothing. Also, people just doing their own thing and not working cooperatively with others to effectively change things. And sadly, most default to this option because of the pervasive apathy throughout the populations of our world. But apathy is a consequence of both ignorance and/or arrogance. People either have no idea what's really going on, or they believe themselves to be too smart to be deceived. Thus, they see no problem because they think everything happens by coincidence, and that powerful people would never conspire to maintain and increase their wealth and power. Clearly, they don't understand history, so they continue doing as they always have done, and that's to go with the flow, follow the crowd, and not rock the boat. But the boat needs to be rocked. Every election cycle, the public are given a new cult of personality to stir their emotions and create false hope of real change, finally, this time. It seems the public will once again fall prey to this little game of the predator class, as it looks like at this point that we will be given Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald J. Trump to duke it out for the golden ring of power. And as always, the mindless masses will fall for this distraction and fully invest their emotions, along with incalculable hours of wasted time and billions of dollars. And for what? Only to remain in the exact same system which continues to abuse them year after year. I'm perpetually in awe at the incredible number of people who still believe that somehow we will be able to vote our way out of this mess. Even though we have seen over and over that voting is rigged and representative democracy is just another distraction to make us believe that we have freedom and an actual voice in how our society operates. How many times must we be fooled before we come to the understanding that we will never vote our way to freedom? Especially when the supermajority will end up having their ignorant say in the outcome anyway. Do we want society to move in the direction the most gullible among us want it to go? I wouldn't think so. Then there are all those who think we can somehow sue them into submission to our will, when they control the legal system as well. Yes, sue them, waste valuable time and resources to no avail, and ultimately leave the same system in place. Do these people even know how to think? At all? Do they have any imagination? Or are they so trapped in boxes they were put into by others that they can't possibly envision a better way to do anything other than the way they've always been told things must be done? Free thinking has apparently been decimated in our world. Maintaining the status quo and doing nothing is a sure path to enslavement. Number 2, hope and pray for the best. This option comes in various forms we've seen over the past few years, and for time immemorial when applied to religious beliefs. This is also something I see every day on social media. And again, it comes from a lifetime of indoctrination and programming to make the individual believe they are powerless. It's called learned helplessness, and billions have fallen prey to this illusion as well. While there are many who believe that a savior is coming and things must play out the way their chosen religious texts have told them it must, others look to more modern saviors in the form of politicians, leaders, or gurus who will be their knights in shining armor. Then there are the group of people who believe in the idea of spontaneous order and that things will just magically work themselves out without any effort on anyone's part. But all we see is the world crumbling around us, societies decaying, and crime increasing at an alarming pace, despite all past failures of the savior figure and worship thereof. So, from what I have witnessed in my life, hoping and praying leads to nothing but apathy, as people stand down in the face of overwhelming evidence that we have all allowed this to happen on our watch, not to mention those few generations before us who were equally as apathetic. There is something to be said for maintaining a positive outlook and understanding what needs to be done to raise humanity out of the dire situation into which we've been forced. But outsourcing our power and energy to save us from our own neglect to external forces beyond our control is ludicrous. We can see from history where that has gotten societies around the world, and it has almost always resulted in democide. Simply hoping and praying for a better world leads to the inaction which ensures our enslavement. Number 3, individually opt out of the system. There are a very tiny minority of people out there who believe that the path to freedom is to spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours researching the legal system and finding the ultimate loopholes to extricate themselves from the system. And while the idea of papering up may have some benefits to the individual, the single fact alone that 99% of the people out there aren't going to spend the amount of time needed to do so makes this a futile endeavor in trying to stop what's coming as promised by the plutocracy behind the technocratic takeover of our world. Because even if an individual does somehow become recognized as a state national and are exempt from certain jurisdictions of law enforcement, the remainder of society will ultimately form a Goliath they will be battling for the rest of their lives. And who's to say that once the beast system gets fully implemented, that their sovereign status will even be recognized any longer? This is also a dangerous path to take, as can be seen by all those who have paid the ultimate price for bucking the system and poking the bear. Chase Allen of Utah was just the latest victim of a system out of control and drunk on power, who died in cold blood at the hands of an overzealous and mindless enforcement class. While it may seem to be a great personal accomplishment to know and understand the written law in such intricate details, I question, why bother wasting the time on such a confusing and convoluted topic, when if we united as one and created an entirely new system based in natural law, none of it would matter in the end. If we choose to finally reclaim our power, it's all moot anyway, and an incredible amount of energy has been wasted. Individually leaving the system still leaves a world on the path to dystopia, and that will eventually harm everyone, regardless of legal status. Number 4, exit and build a parallel society. This option seems to be the most common one out there these days and has been gaining popularity over the past 15 years or so. I could write an entire blog on this subject alone, but if you really understand the divide and conquer tactics of the predator class, this is exactly something they would have initiated as part of their plans on the grand chessboard. The acronyms TEOTWAWKI, or the end of the world as we know it, and SHTF are ubiquitous among these groups of people, and they are preparing for the very worst of societal collapses. But what does that actually accomplish in the overall scheme of things? What is the outcome not only for those who have isolated themselves, but for the rest of the human population? Does it matter to them, or is this yet another completely selfish move? Shouldn't we be working together to stop the complete collapse of civilization instead of just focusing on surviving in a post-apocalyptic world? A rational person would think that would be the most prudent course of action. But again, we have been divided on purpose so that we could be conquered. Yet, these survivalists believe isolating themselves from others is the solution. You speak of unity to these people, and they all claim it's impossible. So, what is the logical outcome of this option, and why do I think it was initiated by insiders of the cabal in the first place? First, we must ask, who are these preppers and survivalists? Are they not those among the population who are keenly aware of the system and the agenda it's pursuing? Are they not amongst the most critical thinkers of the populations? What would be a perfect way to separate those who understand the truth from those who are living completely oblivious to reality in states of blissful ignorance? I would think you'd start a movement to have the critical thinking faction of society band together and purposely move away from the population centers. Start the idea of off-grid living or self-sustaining and intentional communities, so that the most aware among us are all congregated in small, easily targeted areas, for directed energy weapons. This accomplishes multiple goals of the Predator class. They remove the influence of the enlightened from the population centers while creating easy targets for media ridicule as well as elimination once the public has been turned against them. Does anyone see the big picture? Has everyone already forgotten what they did in Waco, Texas? There is one particular group of truthers who have proposed an exit and build strategy to emancipate themselves from the grips of the ruling class and hope to build a parallel society which they somehow believe will be allowed to operate in areas the predators truly believe belong to them. They honestly think they will be left alone to live in peace after seeing what these psychopaths have done to the world in our lifetimes. But again, this creates the exact same logical end of the prepper and survivalist movements. They are proposing the exact same scenario that was proven to be a failed social experiment in the 60s and 70s with all of the hippie communes around the states. There are plenty of documentaries out there showing how and why they failed and or created cultish and disconnected personalities amongst the members. This option will always remind me of one of my favorite scenes from the movie Braveheart. William Wallace says, "I am William Wallace, and I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You have come to fight as freemen, and freemen you are. What would you do without freedom? Will you fight?" To which a Scottish soldier responds, "Fight? Against that? No, we will run, and we will live." And Wallace responds, "Aye, fight, and you may die. Run, and you'll live, at least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?" But we don't have to fight. As I've shown in all of my work, all we need to do is use our minds to ascend in consciousness and work together in creating outside of the current system and then moving en masse into the new one. This can be done peacefully, safely, and non-violently. The exit and build self-sustainable community option will result in the collapse of civilization unless these disparate communities all unite to create a macro solution with the rest of the population which will protect us all, and not just their community, which will more than likely be wiped out eventually anyway. Number 5. Mass protest, general strike, and non-compliance. This is an option to which I simply ask, okay, then what? What is the logical outcome of this scenario? Have the powers that shouldn't be ever listened to our protests? Have they ever relented and changed course, and if so, for how long? Only to go back to their original trajectory once everything has calmed down? Has this ever resulted in the reclamation of real power for the people? Or is it just another temporary band-aid that makes people feel good for a while? What about everyone who relies on their weekly paycheck for their mere survival? How long would this general strike last? What would happen when it's over? How many people would actually participate? Would the predator class even care if they knew it would do us more harm than good? What happened at the end of the mass trucker convoy and general strike in Canada in 2021 and 2022? Is this really a viable option to effect real change in our world, or just more hopium? In the end, everyone goes home with their tails between their legs because they haven't thought things through all the way to the logical conclusion and put in place a replacement system. Number 6. Unite and create a new system. Once you fully understand the motives and goals of the predator class, you understand their Achilles heel. What is the one thing they do more than anything else with their messaging, propaganda, and indoctrination? Why have they hijacked the education systems as well as the mainstream media and governments? It's because they use these methods to communicate programming that gets us fighting and that ultimately keeps us divided. Because their greatest fear is that we realize our strength in numbers, because as I have pointed out, we outnumber them by over 1,000,000 to 1. Their single greatest fear is that we unite and simply walk away from their system into one which doesn't need them, which is why that is the only logical solution to our collective problem. In his 2009 book Superclass, David Rothkopf admitted that the world is run by approximately 6,000 to 8,000 people. That's it. They are the 0.000001%. But these people control the money, the markets, the economic system, the media, the institutions, the corporations, and governments, so as to keep the masses under their control as well. But their system is one of enslavement. It is a system which robs the individual of free will, along with the majority of their exerted energy, and thus keeps us in a perpetual state of feudalism and scarcity in which survival becomes the predominant motivator, not thriving in the abundance we all should be in a superior system. After looking at all the other options I've written about here over many years, I've come to the only logical and obvious conclusion. And it is essentially the same conclusion the Founding Fathers of America came to back in 1776. We can see this self-evident truth in the popular slogans of the time as well. United we stand, divided we fall, and unite or die. Unity is the key to victory. Unity is the key to human emancipation from its current form of enslavement. Unity is the key to creating a better world, which works for everyone. Unity behind a single idea as a guiding force for good is the key to building an alternative, which should attract anyone with a shred of common sense left. And that single idea and guiding force is natural law. We are all bound by its constraints, whether we choose to believe it or not. So why wouldn't that be our guide in creating a new alternative system, which would ultimately render the current one, operating in complete violation of natural law, obsolete, and along with it, the illegitimate power of the predator class? And for some strange reason, I have been attacked for calling for unity. I don't know if they're trolls, idiots, or government agents, but anyone who claims that unity is a bad thing hasn't thought through all I have laid out here in this article. Unity does not mean sacrificing the individual to the collective. It's the current system of democracy and communitarianism which does that. What has been proposed as an alternative system would be the ultimate protection against collectivism, as well as the fertile ground for every individual to achieve their full potential in life in whichever way they choose. If everyone continues to maintain a position of complete selfishness, and we are as a society moving in 100,000 different directions while the enemy is united behind a single agenda of SDG 2030, who do you think will ultimately win this battle? When your enemy's greatest fear is that the billions they control via divide and conquer tactics is that we reject these tactics, unite as one force for good, and walk away from them en masse, is it not prudent to realize that unity is the one primary key to freeing ourselves from a lifetime of tyranny? We must think through everything to its logical end. I have been doing this my entire life before making any profound decisions, and have only fine-tuned this tool over the last 16 years. I have shown the logical end of all the options displayed within this article, and every one except for one leads to complete societal collapse and the inevitable dystopian future none of us should want. Thus, if we apply logic to our options, there is truly only one that will give us the world we want, desire, and deserve, if we were to genuinely focus on and work towards creating it. And that option is the last one. We must unite as one and build the breakaway civilization. The vision, roadmap, and blueprint for this new social order, which puts the individual first and foremost, has been constructed and proposed. All it takes is for people to look at it, share it, and help to create the critical mass which will be necessary for its safe and unchallenged implementation. The greatest fear of our enemy is that we do exactly this, because they know without any doubt that if we do, their power and control over the world would be extinguished forever. They know they can't beat us if we willfully and consciously choose to take this path. So logically, this option is the one on which we should all be focusing our attention and energy, because it is the only one which ensures not only our long-term survival, but enables us to build a world fully in alignment with natural law and reject the idea of merely surviving once and for all. We can and must break free of our programming and lifetime of indoctrination to emancipate ourselves from the mental slavery which manifests in our physical bondage. It's much easier to do than most people could possibly imagine. I and hundreds of thousands of others have already done so, but we need tens of millions more to join us, and then, as logic shows us, we can and will build an infinitely more civilized world for everyone and allow the natural world to begin to heal as well.